Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب وهو الذي يحيي ويميت وله اختلاف الليل والنهار أفلا تعقلون وهو الذي وهو
In the name of Allah, the merciful Lord of mercy, behold, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of night and day, there are indeed signs for men of understanding. In the name of Allah, the merciful Lord of mercy, and He it is who gives life and causes death, and in His control is the alternation of the night and the day. Do you not then understand? Welcome to the second of our 3 sessions on the night in the Quran. Today we will be looking at the dark night of the soul. This is the theme of today, and I hope and pray that I will be able to do some measure of value and justice to this magnificent subject. Welcome to everyone who's joined us, and okay, I noticed that the right. आइए जी बिस्मिल्लाह करते हैं. Welcome. In the name of Allah, the merciful Lord of mercy, behold, in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of night and day, there are indeed signs for men of understanding. Surah Al Imran, verse 190. And He it is who causes life and causes death, who gives life and causes death. And in His control is the alternation of the night and the day. Do you not then understand? Surah Mu'minun, verse number 80. Now, I have presented before everyone who is with me and watching and looking at the screen these 2 magnificent ayats, and looking at something very, if you like, basic, and yet something extremely profound. Let's see. In the first one, Surah Al Imran, ayat number 190, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of night and day as signs for, I understand that the word men is Abdullah Yusuf Ali Saab. I'm sure he means human beings of understanding. Not really, not really. Understanding. We have just heard the ayat. It goes, Ulil Albab. These are ayat for the Ulil Albab. And my teachers tell me that the Ulil Albab is a category of believers who are at the highest levels of intelligence. The word Albab comes from the word Lubba, Lam Be and a Tashdid on the top. Lubba actually is core, C-O-R-E, the core, the essence, the distinguishing mark, that which makes something that exists to exist under that category. That is Lubba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the people of the highest intelligence, but He's making them look at the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of night and day. So you might say, इसमें क्या कमाल की बात है? हाँ, जमीन है, आसमान है, आसमानों पर बस ठीक है, इट इज अ लॉट ऑफ, और हाँ, दिन आती है, रात आती है, दिन आती है, हाँ ठीक है, ऑब्वियस। इसमें पीपल ऑफ द इनर मोस्ट कोर के लिए क्या खास बात है? एक सवाल, आई वुड लाइक टू फ्रेम माय कॉन्वर्सेशन टुडे as a reflection on this key word in the ayat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seems to be pointing at something plain before the eye. बस आंखें खोलें और आपको नजर आएगा कि आसमान ऊपर है, जमीन पैर के नीचे है, हाँ ठीक है। एंड इफ यू लिव 24 आवर्स ऑन दिस प्लेनेट, आपको दिन गुजरा, रात गुजरी, एक, बस ठीक है जी, फिर दोबारा दिन आ गया, फिर उसमें उलिल अलबाब वाली बात क्या है? आई एम deliberately phrasing, आई होप यू आर विथ मी। जरा सा चैट पर प्लीज जवाब डालते जाएं, यस, if you are with me. ये मेरा, I've raised this question. Why should something as obvious as some, just before our eyes, the sun, the moon, the stars, the heavens, the mountains, the rivers, the trees, the valleys, the flowing waters, the, yeah, okay, obvious. So what is the ulil albab point of this? इसमें people of the innermost core के लिए क्या खास बात है? That's my question. And the other verse, which is again a parallel verse, and he it is, Surah Mu'minun, ayat number 80, and he it is who gives life and causes death, and in his control is the alternation of the night and the day. Do you not then understand? And I might just turn back round to Allah Ta'ala and say, Ya Rab, yes, I understand. Zindagi aapse hai, maut aapse hai. You are the one who gives life, causes death. Yes. And I understand that the day and the night happen due to a system. I understand that they happen. तो इसमें क्या समझने की बात है? वो इसमें इसमें ना समझने की बात क्या है जो आप हमसे कह रहे हैं? अफला ये तफक्कर हो, तुम तब फिक्र क्यों नहीं करते? And today's conversation will be an effort, my humble effort, to try and respond. हमें, I do not claim much, but try and respond to, thanks to my teachers, what or how can we begin to answer these questions that are embedded in these two magnificent ayats. Okay. Thus, night is a great symbol. Because our focus is the night, so from both the verses, the day and the night I mentioned, I'm aware, I'll come to that. Night is a great symbol. And I'm going to share three dimensions of it on the cosmos, at the level of planetary space between the Earth and Venus and Jupiter and Pluto and all that. We know darkness, as in absence of light. The darkness, we will see cosmos at the level of darkness. In society, you see, we will see this at three levels. In the social level, which is the human level, it can be ignorance. It can be ignorance. And again, a kind of ignorance, superstition. And another kind of, shall we say, it won't come as a gap of knowledge, but it will come as a gap of uh, will, which is corruption. So at the social level, night exists as ignorance, superstition, and corruption. These, at the social level, when they are spread out, the way night spreads out over an entire continent, over an entire nation, a country, the way the the Earth's axis moves around the sun, and before the sun, we can see night is a symbol of these three things. And of course, the day and the sunlight and the coming of Fajr and Falak are the opposites, as we know. Big subject there. Right now, I just want to move on. And at the level of the individual human being, the dark night of the soul. And this then is our theme for today. So I hope you now are with me on this. Night is a great symbol. At the level of the cosmos, it is this vast space where the light of the sun, our sun, is a speck compared to the great darkness, absence of light around. And in the social level, we have ignorance, superstition, and corruption. And at the human individual level, we have the dark night of the soul, the darkness within it. Today, we will explore this one word and this one reality. Please, जरा chat में quickly say, are you with me on this? इधर तक आप मेरे साथ हैं? Yes, 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 डालते जाएं, and I continue. Ji, Yusuf, certainly, please, you want to say something? Welcome. Okay. So we have seen these three great symbolic meaning of night. We now move to the dark night of the soul. Dark night of the soul in modern language today, in the world, in the English language, in literature today, the dark night of the soul is a crisis of faith. People say it with some remorse, sometimes a regret, that I'm going through the dark night of the soul. And what they mean is that they are having a crisis of faith. They would like to believe in God, in the angels, in the books, in the messengers. They would like to believe in spiritual truths, but they can't. But they can't. There are doubts. There are problems inside that seem to irk them. And so they are going through the dark night. This is the common, inverted commas, psychological meaning of it. We will go much deeper. We will go on a totally different level. So, but I need to take you all with me so that we go slowly, but with together. MashaAllah. So is a crisis of faith, is a loss of joy in spiritual things. This has been an experience for on record. There are people in their spiritual biographies who have mentioned this, that I wanted to pray, but I could not. I wanted to read the Quran, but I could not. As in, I found no joy in it. I found no value in it. I felt repetitive. And then, of course, with great shame, the person avoided the actual words that were going through the heart. A loss of joy is the neatest way I can put it. This is the dark night of the soul. But actually, it is something totally different. We normally think of this as a prelude to anxiety and despair and depression, and as a loss of hope. कि अल्लाह ताला ने तो हमें छोड़ दिया है, हमारी दुआएं सुनता ही नहीं, हम कहाँ, that kind of thing. And instead, it is actually this. It is a signal that you are being prepared for something greater. Allah, you are being prepared for something greater. This one thought, if I were able to share it with you, you will now see how the dark night of the soul is perhaps one of the most precious spiritual experience we can have. So as you can see, no, it is not just at the level of psyche. No, it is not just at the level of moods. It is at the level of soul, the dark night of the soul. Right, G. Now, if you are with me so far, I now begin. For that, we will learn from a master of another tradition, an unsurpassed physician of the soul, a diagnostician of the inward world. I assure you, many people have said many high praise for this particular um, scholar, name, master. Uh, I'm using the word physician advisedly because what we are now going to deal with in great detail is almost like a metaphor of disease and its cure, Mars or uska ilaj. So we are now going to turn to a man, an unsurpassed physician of the soul. So much so that the dark night of the soul, this word that we use, was actually coined by him. He was the one who first used it. There, Saint John of the Cross, 1542 to 1591. And that, the book on the right, is a picture of the book from my collection. Here it is. Yeah, exactly the same. The Dark Night of the Soul. This spiritual classic, I am convinced, has done remarkable good across the traditions as one of the landmark books on what you might say spiritual alchemy, on the diseases and the brilliance of the cure. Yes, I understand that this is entirely from the tradition of Christ. I understand. But then Christ is one of us too. वो भी तो हमारे ही है. And so, therefore, when a great saint of Saint John of the Cross writes this in Spanish, the book is written in Spanish, available in English translation, free of charge, PDF, download as much as you want, no issue, as indeed I did and took the printout. So, Dark Night of the Soul then is the classic from where we will be looking at the imperfections which God would like us to put aside so that we may achieve a higher stature. Okay. We know that the seven deadly sins lead to dangerous consequences even in this worldly life. We know that greed and anger and luxury, we know avarice, sloth, laziness, pride, we know that these have dangerous consequences even for worldly life. You want to run a company, you want to get collaboration from your team, try doing it with only anger, with micromanaging, with pride, with making everyone feel small and mean. Try doing it. You will soon have, well, you will soon be in zero conditions and bankruptcy. So we know that the seven deadly sins, this is advisedly from another tradition, but please understand, we will turn to our own tradition as well. These things are completely in sync with the truth of our human frailty and the truth of our human, shall we say, loss condition. So if the seven deadly sins are dangerous even in this worldly life, how much more, how much more deadly must they be if they are indulged in on the path to God? Oh, yani यानी अगर दुनियावी काम के लिए भी ये 7 deadly sins are signatures of destruction, imagine how much more terrible they must be if they are on the path to God. And that is what we are going to study. The master physician has given us the, the diagnosis, and we will go at each one of these turn by turn. Once again, I'll just quickly, जरा सा बस जल्दी से chat में आप डालते जाएं, comments, whatever, and we move on. This is hard. We are in a thick subject, and I'm creating a space for this discussion with enormous hope that I'm addressing a group of people who are interested in this and who are learners and seekers, as indeed I am, and my humble effort to share some of the wisdom that I have received. MashaAllah. Okay, good, good. Yes, yes. Okay. Yes, thank you. Yes. First sin. So we now go in sequence. ठीक है जी, first sin. And I would like to say that 100% of the words that are in the following slides of the 7 deadly sins are all from St. John of the Cross, from his book. This will be the first part of our presentation today until we turn to the ilaj and we turn to the cure. It will be hinted at in the sins itself, but you, as you will see. ठीक है, mashallah. Yes, thank you. All right. Yes. First sin, pride. Ah, right. Zehra Kachelo is with her. Zehra, are you here? Asad Hamid Saab is here. Asad ji, are you here?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Thank you.
Please, ये भाई ये paragraph जरा पढ़िएगा, beginning with the word beginners.
Beginners feel themselves to be very fervent and diligent in spiritual things and devout exercises. But there often comes to them through imperfections a certain kind of secret pride, whence they come to have some degree of satisfaction with their works and with themselves. And they have a certain desire which is very vain to speak of spiritual things in presence of others, and sometimes even to teach things rather than to learn them.
Amazing. Thank you. You see, this is the first sign of it. If some little sweetness has come to me and I have experienced it at the level of my senses, whereas that's the lowest level of understanding spiritual things, this secret pride is present, which is there to upturn and turn around everything. And it is amazing that they have a certain desire, which is very vain, to speak of spiritual things in the presence of others. Not that there is an occasion, just without purpose, without occasion. They just, and this kind of showing off, this kind of a holier than thou attitude is the signature that the seeker has a long way to go. The whole point of the path to God is humility. And whenever I receive any gift, any sweetness, any signature, any sign, I must remember how much more is deserved by God, and how little and puny and puerile was my worship. My attention must go to the glory of God, not to the goodness of my worship. You see the distinction. It is simply the direction of the attention. When my direction of attention is how wonderful that God has blessed me, wow, that sense being given out to everyone, going around and sharing it with everyone. Oops, you can see that in if we really understood what humility was, we wouldn't want to. We would understand how small it was and how puny it was. So this then is the first signature, and then here is something I can like. I would. I wish there was a moment. I live in a very. We all live in a very strange world. We live in a world where shaitan, the demonic, the devilish, the diabolic, are almost entirely absent from normal conversation. Once upon a time, people were very alert to the wiles of the devil. ये शैतान की चाल है, ये वसवसा आ गया मुझे, लाहौल वाला कुवत. There was a way by which we understood the presence of the evil one, and the way we were tempted all the time, and the way our hearts were twisted by clumsiness, stupidity, and arrogance. But today we live in a world where we almost seem to have conceded the space to shaitan, to the devil. We simply don't mention him. We consider that kind of thing to be blasé, to be, अरे यार क्या पुराने लोगों की बातें कर रहे हो, अरे यार. So we turn everything into jest, into a joke. Um, and therefore, what we achieve doing, sadly, is that we have given shaitan the open space to do his mischief. And wallah, this is not the time for me to, मैं कुछ और नहीं बता सकता, but friends, uh, shaitan is your open enemy, says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in several places in the Quran, most notably in Surah Yasin, the heart of the Quran. When Allah ta'ala says, "O Bani Adam, did I not tell you not to worship shaitan? He is your open enemy. Innahu lakum aduwwum mubin. Wa na'buduni, but worship me. Haza siratul mustaqim." That is the straight path. When you understand that Allah Ta'ala addressing all mankind has said, take shaitan as your enemy, it was not, Allah Ta'ala was not just playing a psychological jest. It is real. The devil is real. And here is the second way in which he destroys us, our good deeds. In these persons, the devil often increases the fervor and the desire to perform these and other works more frequently, so that their pride and presumption may grow greater. And as you can see, when shaitan manages to make us do show off worship, show off our worship, remembering only to do the worship when people are present. And when we are alone, we of course have other things to do, no? We have all these other things to read and see, and other social media and other things. So we understand the great ploy shaitan uses to feed our pride and ultimately destroy whatever good it was that we were doing in the eyes of God, the angels, and indeed sensible, uh, ascended human beings. I move on. I will do all the seven deadly sins. I will do each one of them and show how, at the spiritual level, they are deadly because they completely destroy us and waylay us from the path. On the chat, I would like at least 4 or 5 people to quickly say, are you all right? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Is this okay? Jaldi se please bata dijiye so that I move on. Thank you. Right. Avarice. Okay. Thank you. Avarice. Don't stop, I've been told, and I agree. Here we go. Avarice is a different kind of this is what happens to these people are discontented with the spirituality which God gives them, and they are very disconsolate and querulous because they find not in spiritual things the consolation that they would desire. Wow, amazing. These are the people who have such avarice. Greed, avarice is the other word for greed. They seem they are constantly looking at what not what God gives them, but what God gives to other people. And they are all the time sad. Why doesn't God give me what I want? As if, as we shall see in the later ones. Many can never have enough of listening to counsels and learning spiritual precepts and of possessing and reading many books which treat of this matter. And they spend their time on all these things rather than on works of mortification and the perfecting of the inward poverty of spirit which should be theirs. Instead of actually doing it, these are the people who are constantly comparing, who are constantly listening to more talks, more sheikhs, more scholars, more videos, more books, more. This just doesn't end. And avarice then is here. A great sign of this is the people who are always seeking. They are suffering from FOMO, big time, as Gen Zs would have it, fear of missing out. They move from one teacher to another, one system to another, always restless and always finding fault. And a great Sufi master has put it, by all means, we all began as seekers, but we don't want to seek anymore because we have found we are finders. Lovely. Arey bhai, I know you are a seeker. Yes. When will you be a finder as well? Yes. Coming up, please. Shireen, it's coming up. Yes, we will be coming to that. So this greed, this avarice is constantly this movement from one teacher, one system. And I know of people who follow one path and then they find something odd with the teacher or something, and then they say, nee, nee. Then they leave that and then they go to someone, then they go, and they somehow not finders, they remain seekers. And finding fault, what a lovely line. If you seek to find fault, there is much fault to find. They seek a divine perfection in a human level, and it can't be done. They seek a divine perfection in human beings, and it can't be done. So they have this strange ideas of perfection, and they say there is once again many answers come to many thoughts come to mind. The perfect pupil. There was once a young man who was seeking for the perfect master. So he went from village to village and cut one township to another township. And once upon a time, when one could travel without passports and without much worry, he went from place to place seeking the perfect master until at last, when people pointed out to him a particular sheikh, a particular master, and said, go to him. And he went there, stayed with him for 3 days, as is the courtesy of that time. And after 3 days, the master asked him, you don't talk to the master, master asks you. And the master asked him, yes, how can I serve you? How can I help you? And the disciple said, sir, I think you are you are the perfect master. Please take me as your disciple. And the master smiled and said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Because you see, the perfect master will only have the perfect disciple. When this kind of thing happens to you, you recognize that the people who are at this level of greed need to be told this. Okay, avarice. We put that aside. Third, sin, luxury. The first cause of this sin is the pleasure which human nature takes in spiritual things. Friends, let us be very, very clear. ये बिल्कुल जायज है. If my namaz and my roza and my zakat and my reciting and my wisdom and my thinking did not give me pleasure in my human nature, there would be something seriously odd about the path itself. In the beginning, you give the child sweets. In the beginning, you give the child candy. You get him to be interested. Then you teach him other tastes, just to use that as a metaphor. So, luxury in and of itself is not the issue. It is this. Sometimes there arises within these spiritual persons, whether they be speaking or performing spiritual actions, a certain vigor and bravado to their having regard to persons who are present. And before these persons, they display a certain kind of vain gratification. Allah, it is all right to be energetic before God. It is not all right to be energetic only when other human beings are watching you being energetic. This is a peculiar way by which you want those particular people to recognize your spiritual stature. And that is a luxury. That is a luxury of spirit. No, 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 not on. You need to be weaned away from these kinds of things. And that then is the whole point. Yes, I must give you candy in the beginning so that you like it. But later I must stop giving you candy because your teeth will be ruined. So then another logic goes into place. Third sin. Let me move on. Fourth sin, wrath. Lovely. Anger, wrath, ghazab. When their delight and pleasure in spiritual things come to an end, they naturally become embittered. When the dark night of the soul begins, their delight in spiritual things is stopped. It is taught by God. Yeah, please understand this. The dark night of the soul is given by God. We will turn to this. अभी हम आ रहे हैं इसको. So what happens is they no longer find joy in what they used to find joy in, and they become bitter. That is only one level. Here's the other level when they destroy themselves. There are others of these spiritual persons, again, who fall into another kind of spiritual wrath. This happens when they become irritated at the sins of others and keep watch on those others with a sort of uneasy zeal. Anger is not just bitterness at one's own lack of joy. We will come to that. It is this constant policing of other people. Look, वो देखो नमाज पढ़ रहा है मस्जिद में, रुको भी ठीक नहीं है, सजदे भी ठीक नहीं, पता नहीं क्या कर रहा है वो. Okay, how did you notice all those things? What were you doing? What the heck were you doing that you had the time to watch what someone else was doing? It is this arrogance, this wrath taken at the spiritual level. Worrying about things which are just simply not your concern. And this constantly keeps some people in a state of anger and animosity. As you can imagine, such people are not really paying attention to what they should be paying attention. And here's the third one. That was the anger at other people. First was the anger at the pleasure gone. So it is simply like somebody who's going through withdrawal symptoms of an addiction. And thirdly, there are others who are vexed with themselves when they observe their own imperfectness and display an impatience that is not humility. There are people who go around parading how bad they are. They think it is a penance. No, they want to display their anger to themselves. But watch carefully. Where is the glory of God in all this? These people still want a validation by someone else to say to them, "Ha, yaar, kamal hai, dekho. Here is this person who confesses his own clumsiness, stupidity, lacks, mistakes, lapses. Oh ho, yaar, bande kamal hai yaar, bada zarf hai isme." But what did he get out of it? They display an impatience that is not human. You don't go around. In one of the examples given by another teacher, if you are going on the path, if you're going on the road and you fall down, slip, and immediately, of course, you stand up. And some dust from the street touches your clothes, your kneecap, it's what is the first thing you do? You quickly scrape it off. You just brush it off and keep walking. What you don't do is leave the dust on your clothes and go around the whole day showing it to everyone who comes to you and say, "Look, I fell down. Look at this." That's absolute bizarre. But this is exactly the phenomenon that these people do when they make the fourth sin of wrath at the spiritual level, when they parade their imperfection before the people and to show anger to themselves. They have a long way to go. Fifth, spiritual gluttony. Oh my God. Gluttony, uh, obesity, overeating, overeating. They dare to do these things even though the contrary has been commanded them. These are the people who are most imperfect and unreasonable, for they set bodily penance before subjection and obedience, which is penance according to reason and discretion, and therefore a sacrifice more acceptable and pleasing to God, they think, than any other. Spiritual gluttony is a weird kind of bodily punishment that you give to yourself, having read something from a book. And when a teacher says, "Listen, you don't need to do all these things, do this other thing," they say, "No, no, no, what are you talking about?" These are the people who stand for prayers, offer nafal after nafal after nafal. Not that there is any need for them, nobody's ever told them. They are commanded to have a balance. But the gluttony of the spiritual experience or the penance or the worship that they're doing is so great that they can't seem to give it up. And that is one of the. So, this, as you can immediately see, connects with avarice, with greed. We know this. All around us, we have these small pamphlets available. 15 minute में 1 लाख नेकियां कमा ले. Wow, that's quite a lot. What does it mean actually? आप ये सूरत इतनी दफा पढ़ लीजिए तो परवरदिगार ने, अल्लाह के रसूल ने कहा कि इसके पीछे इतना सवाब है. और आप ये पढ़ लीजिए तो the people who do these kinds of things, and only these kinds of things, are the people who have a long way to learn to what true sawab is and what a stature before God is. Such persons are working their own will. They grow in vice rather than in virtue. For to say the least, they are acquiring spiritual gluttony and pride in this way through not walking in obedience. They are not obeying what they have been told to actually do. They are following their own will. And as you shall see, I will just connect to the sixth and seventh sin because I need to get to the solutions. These are the people who believe that their own will supersedes the will of their seniors, those who are their teachers, masters, and indeed the system, the teachings. They impose their own will and likes, and as you can see, those very same virtues that they want turn into vices. Sixth and seventh sins: envy and sloth. Envy, oh dear, this never goes. These are the people who are extremely unhappy when other people achieve spiritual good, which cause them a certain sensible grief at being outstripped upon this road, so that they would prefer not to hear others praised. All this is clean contrary to charity, to spiritual sloth, which they flee because these things are incompatible with sensible pleasure. You see, ये बहुत अजीब यानी they don't seem to realize that the gifts of God coming from the infinite are infinite unto each person. And you will always get what you deserve, no more, no less. Your envy is fruitless. Your envy is useless. It doesn't work. So, just as in the worldly things, your envy doesn't do you any good, but harms you because you have taken time away from gaining what you want to gain in envying what that other person has gained. Instead of that, what you need is humility. This whole issue of charity, this whole issue of recognizing here, charity is not the translation of sadqa. Charity is a largeness of heart to recognize, oh, what a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed that person. And what a blessing that I have come to know of that blessing rather than feel envious and say, how did how did God give such and such? This is a kind of blasphemy and a kind of temerity which is unacceptable in the divine scheme of things. Due to sloth, they abandon the way of negation of their own will and pleasure for God's sake. Yani, what was the point of if you were on the path to God, you had to do things that pleased God. What have these people done? They want to have their own will. Many would like God to will what they themselves will, almost as if they would like God to run the world according to their wishes. And this brings to mind a very fine moment, conversation by Qibla Wasif Ali Wasif, a name known to many Pakistanis and now around the world. Qibla Wasif Ali Wasif was speaking as was his way uh, before a group of people. They would assemble, etc. And he asked them a question. Tell me, he said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you this whole world in the palm of your hand, metaphorically, to do what you wish, and you had 5 minutes of God-like power of wishing, what is the first thing you would do? And you can imagine people came up with all sorts of answers. People said, I would end poverty, I would end disease, I would end suffering, I would get all these things away. My God, I would do these things in a twinkle of an eye. I, people sort of said all sorts of things. And Wasif Ali Wasif heard everything. After a moment's pause, he said, if God actually gave me the world to run for 5 minutes and said, do whatever you like, at the end of 5 minutes, I would give the world unchanged back to God, saying, Ya Rab, aap khud bahut acha chala rahe. Now, Razi Baraza, consider the immense wisdom in what he's saying. My Lord, you are running the universe in the best and the most perfect way. I have problems with poverty, with suffering, as if you don't have problems with poverty and suffering, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not sad when human beings behave in a inhuman way, as if God is not sad when human beings murder and kill and plunder. So Qibla Wasif Ali Wasif says, मैं परवरदिगार को ये कायनात ये दुनिया उसी तरह वापस लौटा था ये कह करके कि यार अब मैं आपकी रजा में राजी. What a brilliant way of understanding what true humility is. Not that I want to run the world the way I want, but my Lord, you are capable of running the world, and I agree with. I may not like, but that is my imperfection. You are running the world quite well. And that then is, we conclude this conversation about the 7 deadly sins. And this then is the overview of the dark night of the soul. Any of these sins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to get rid of these sins. So therefore, when we become capable, when we become capable, He weans us, and these sins show themselves on the spiritual path. So the dark night of the soul, we pray that when it comes upon us, the daylight be near and the morning arrives. So ये रात जब आ जाए हम पर, हमारे कल्ब पर, हमारी रूह पर, या रब, तो ये ना हुई सी कि ये दिन और रात का इख्तिलाफ लैल व नहार आयात उलिल अलबाब की है, ना हुई सी। इसमें क्या बात कही जा रही थी? No, it is not the night and the day on the planet. It is the night and the day of the soul. And it is the night of the soul that is necessary and a gift of God that we need to suffer through, go through, so that we are free of the imperfections and we finally become fit to stand before God. And it is only when I see the clumsiness and the puniness of my worship that I then say, the way the greatest master, the Prophet upon whom be peace, said, "My Lord, I could not do the taqwa that was due to you. Ya Rab, wo taqwa na ho saka jo taqwa ka haq tha." So then we understand that the finite, being finite, cannot actually ever do anything to the infinite. महदूद जो भी कर ले, वो लामहदूद के हक के मुताबिक नहीं हो सकता. To recognize this inescapable distance is to then the first sign of morning, is fajr, is the falak, तो सुबह की पौ जो फुटती है और अल्लाह ताला की बरकत जो नजर आना शुरू होती है. Then we understand why the night was necessary to free us from these deadly sins. How? आइए, this is the profound meaning of the alternation of the day or night for people. Uh, let us turn to our masters for a cure from all these imperfections. First, यानी फार्मेसी, अभी तो हमने बीमारियों की लिस्ट देखी ना. The pharmacy, the greatest pharmacy of them all, the divine name, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala के नाम, जो अल्लाह सुब्हानहू तआला ने सिखाए अपने हबीब के जरिए and through the prophet unto us. The divine names are a complete pharmacy. And it is not my topic today to go into that today. I will simply share with you the wisdom by which I have learned. 3 नाम के बारे में बस अभी की बात हो सकती है. आज की सारी गुफ्तगू ये 3 नाम के बारे में, या काबिजो, या बासितो, या वासियो. The masters have said that these 3 names capture the waverings of the spiritual wayfarer. The spiritual wayfarer, जो रास्ते का है, सालिक, जो शख्स अल्लाह सुब्हानहू तआला के रास्ते पे लगता है, उसको ये 3 अस्माए हुस्ना जो हैं, ये उसके ये मददगार हैं. वो कब्ज की कैफियत से गुजरता है, विच इज द डार्क नाइट ऑफ द सोल. वो बस्त की कैफियत से गुजरता है, विच इज डे लाइट एट द एंड ऑफ द नाइट. एंड या वासियो, द वासियो जल्ला जलालहू, the expander, the ever the limitless. He then sees the narrow bandwidth on which he was working and the vastness of the universe, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the 3 names. Here are 3 books. I have the honor and privilege of having them. Divine Names, the 99 Healing Names of the One Love. Lovely book. I received this only today through a friend, and physicians of the heart, a Sufi view of the 99 names of Allah. This is the Wazifa project. A group of people did the Wazifas of the 99 names and looked at the impact on their psyches, on their souls, on their inward worlds, and then conducted this healing pharmacy of the 99 names. And the third book is Data Sahab's Kashful Mahjoob, which contains some brilliant teachings about how the state of Qabz and Bast come upon the seeker on the path. Briefly, Data Sahab has another set of teachings, but these three are, we now turn to a different, the cure. We've heard the disease, we now turn to the cure. Okay. And of the many pharmacies given to us, we will draw on the one given by Imam Al-Ghazali in his monumental Ahya Ulumuddin. This is the book. Imam Al-Ghazali, 1058 to 1111, and the 4-volume Ahya Ulumuddin. Available everywhere, and it is. And please note that in this talk, I can only offer a list of generic medicines, and nor am I capable of more than that. Friends, अभी की गुफ्तगू में ये मैं मेडिकल मेटाफर पूरा लिए हुए चल रहा हूँ. So I began with the physician of the soul. I then turned to the pharmacy of medicines. And now I'm talking about the generic medicines, which these, what I'm now going to offer from Ahya Ulumuddin, are the attitudes, mindsets, inclinations, reframes of our life situations as we face them. And so in the next few minutes, I will share with you the 10 attitudes, mindsets. I've used a different vocabulary for them because after that, it is our own teacher and the person to whom we share what to do in that moment of life situation and how we navigate that. Okay, let us begin. We begin with the first one, Tawbah. Repentance. Friends, Tawbah is the gate of gates. All spirituality begins with Tawbah. Begins with a turning back, a turning to the Sirat-e-Mustaqim. One metaphor used about Tawbah is exactly this. There is the path. There is the path. We have digressed from the path. We have moved away. Our clumsiness, nafs, our own self-will, whatever. Tawbah is to recognize that we have gone away from the path and to turn back. So tawaba, the root of that is to turn back. Tawab, Ya Tawab is one of the names of Allah. So applied to Allah is Tawbah, the one who turns in attention to you when called. That is Ya Tawab, the one who turns to you when you call upon him. So this then is Tawbah, the opening of everything. You can't continue on your lifestyle the way you are and accept that you are also moving towards God. You can't. Ye ho hi nahi sakta. There must be a categorical change. And that is signified when the Prophet upon whom be peace said about fasting. And masters have commented on this. The Prophet said, if your fasting does not change you, your demeanor, your lies, अगर तुम झूठ बोलने से बाज नहीं आते, दगाबाजी से, धोखे से, तुम अपनी जो तुम रोजमर्रा करते हो उससे तुम्हारे रोजे से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता और सिर्फ ये भूख और प्यास तुमने उठाई हुई है, then the Prophet said, you gain nothing out of it except hunger. So Tawbah then is this life change, this change in direction and therefore change at every level where it is needed. Step 1. I will tell you the 10 steps. These are complete chapters given by Ghazali, Imam Al-Ghazali in his book with enormous detail. Again, a study. All these books are available freely on PDF as well. Take them, Read them. It's all available. Patience and gratitude, sabr and shukr. Uh, how can we say this? The Quran is full of this. When Allah Ta'ala says, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. Watch the meme ayn, ma'a, with, with. Yani Allah Ta'ala is totally with the person who is doing patience. यानी कहीं पर भी ये नहीं आया कि मैं नमाज पढ़ने वालों के साथ, ये कभी भी नहीं आया कि मैं नमाज पढ़ने वालों के साथ माआ, लेकिन सब्र करने वालों के साथ है. It's amazing. यानी consider this. You can be doing sabr while standing, sitting, lying on your side. You can be in any posture, any position, in any phase, in any language, at any time, in any way, and you will be considered to be in worship because you are doing sabr. Wow. And shukr, gratitude. There is no limit to scholars around the world of every tradition, and now motivational speakers of every tradition telling you, be grateful. And what more do I need except the word of God, which says in the Quran, and if you are la in shakartum yazda, and if you are grateful, I will give you more. Yani, if you are grateful, I will give you more. Any in the brevity of this little sentence, try and imagine what it means. All I need to do, wake up every morning and look at everything around my room and just say, thank you, Lord, thank you, thank you, thank you. Just tick marks. And I need to keep doing this, and that's enough. God says, if you are grateful, I will give you more. So as we can see, these are mindsets, inclination. That's 2. 3, fear and hope. Khauf or raja. Raja is actually ummeed. Hope, fear and hope. The moment is between fear and hope. His heart is between fear. What does that mean? He is afraid of the divine judgment. He is afraid of the mighty, the majestic, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, As-Salam. He is afraid of the justice of God. But that justice of God is not, that fear is not so great that he is paralyzed. This is beautiful. He is not so afraid that he is shivering with fear, helpless, paralyzed, not able to think, plan, do anything. No, 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 no. You are to be afraid, but you are also to be hopeful. You are to be hopeful of his mercy, of his love, of his compassion, of his rahmah. In between these two, your attitude should be firm. Not so afraid that you are paralyzed from doing either good or evil, nor so hopeful of his mercy as if you almost guaranteed it, as if you cannot turn back to God and say, "Ha, aap to maaf karenge hi na." Wait, don't do this. This is not fair, and this is also not conduct. This is not conduct becoming. This is terrible. So don't take his forgiveness for granted, but be hopeful of his forgiveness, and don't take his justice to tyrannize you. Be cognizant of his justice. This is fear and hope. Next, poverty and renunciation. Fakr and zohad. Okay. I will respond at the end, Shiri. Let me do all of these and I'll respond at the end. Thank you. Poverty and renunciation. Fakr and zohad. Doing without. Doing without. A modern teacher has said, don't just give people things that you don't need. Give people things that you like yourself. give them. Now that is true, Sadhguru. That is true charity. Poverty and renunciation. You can actually live with a lot less. And what more do we need than the last days of Ramzan to remember how little food we actually need? आखिरी अयाम चल रहे हैं. Haven't you noticed? ना सहरी में जी लगता है ना इफ्तार में. And you take a little and you say, अच्छा बस. Actually, we need very little. It is the gluttony we indulge in over 11 months that takes 20 days of fasting to put aside. It's amazing. Poverty and renunciation. Next, Tawheed and Tawakkul. Now, I know this word Tawheed suddenly put over here is strange, but to notice that just about everything that happens to us is coming from the one source. Tawheed. Everything that happens to us comes from one source, one being, one being, one being, one. If that is true, तो फिर सारी उम्मीदें सारा तवक्कुल भी उसी पर है. Whatever I do, my Lord, I trust you that the outcomes will be all right. If it has occurred to me to trust someone and I have done this, I pray that the outcome will be all right. I plant the seed. I have no guarantee that a plague of locusts will come and destroy the whole farm. I have no guarantee, but I trust. I tawakkul. I put it into the ground. And in that, my hope that they will give me the harvest. That you will give me the harvest. So Tawheed and Tawakkul works that way. The beginning of all my actions is in His oneness, and the end of all my hopes are also in His Tawakkul. Okay. 6. Love and attachment. Muhabbat-e ilahi and shauq wa raza. One of the names of Allah is Ya Wadudu, the one who loves. And my teachers explained, look, he said, look at every parent loving their children. Look at every mother loving their children. That's at the human level. No, go deeper. Look at every parent of every creature that gives birth. Look at their children. Every bird that lays its eggs and their chicks. And every cat and kitten and dog and puppies. Look around creation and you will see this incredible love as a bond connecting all creatures to their offsprings. And then he said, how is it? All of that is only 1 degree of love which God has permitted to be sprinkled on the human planet, on this planet. On the last day, 99% of His love will become manifest. Muhabbat ilahi, love and attachment. Shauq or rasa. Will, intention, and truthfulness. Niyat, irada, sidq. Masters have done a lot of work on intent. Let our intention be pray. Amal jaise bhi ho. It has been said in one of the narrations of Mi'raj that some mu'mineen, some believers will enter heaven and they will be given rewards of some deeds. And they will turn to the angel on the side and say, but we don't remember doing these deeds. How come we are receiving these rewards? And the angel will say, true, you didn't do them. You intended to do them. Wow. तुमसे वो नेकी ना हुई लेकिन नियत तो की ना तुमने बस बस उसका अजर भी. And at that moment the moment will hit his head and say, my Lord, how I wish I had intended more. तो करना कराना तो अल्लाह ताला खूब जानते हैं कि कैसा होगा लेकिन नियत ही कर लेते हम. Great. And meditation and introspection. These are clumsy English translations of wonderful Arabic words, muhasba and muraqba. Muhasba is accountability, to to say to oneself with a harsh, critical, just look, did I do my best in this situation? Did I do what a God fearing believer of God should have done in this? Or did I allow my people pleasing, my my greed, my need for such and such a thing? Did I allow that to make me slip and make me do something slippery? Muhasabah. And muraqbah is to be raqib. The root of it comes from looking within, to look within inside and examine, pay attention, and I can only say discover. And pondering over good, tafakkur. We've said just now that if there is fault to find, if you seek to find fault, there is much fault to find. Tafakkur then is an invitation to look at the good. And yes, indeed, at all days, all times of the day, my failure has not been in noticing the unworthy. My failure has been in noticing the worthy. Wonderful story of Christ Jesus walking with his apostles, came upon the decaying, dead carcass of some creature. From one, from one reading, it was a tiger, perhaps, a lion. He came upon a dead, decaying carcass of uh, a creature, lion, imagine. And those who were with him puffed up their noses, closed their eyes. Oh, what a stench! Oh, look at the holes in the skin. Look at the maggots growing there. Look at the smell. But Jesus Christ said, see how shining are its teeth. The, the prophet of God pointed at something else. Tafakkur, 9. And finally, death. We will pass away. We will go. And I find it surprising that we think not thinking about death is going to somehow make it go away. We think, no, 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 no. A constant, our scheme of things has made it very, very clear. A day from Fajr to Asr is a lifespan. A day. Fajr, Falak, is as it were being born. The afternoon is full manhood. Asr time is maturity. Maghrib is farewell. Isha is being buried in the grave. 5 prayers correspond to 5 stages of life. To consider each day as a memory of a life, the span of a life, is to then recognize the enormous gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us of each moment and each day, and its beauty and its ephemeral quality. And this brings me to a close. Sorry. The dark night is a gift from God. But why would God do this? And here is the brilliant answer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to walk on our own feet. That's a metaphor of childhood. A baby, 4 years old, 3.5 years old, is constantly being carried by parents. Then one day they put the child down and say, okay, now walk. And the child, if it is a child, I mean, as a baby, says, what kind of rejection is this? No, it's not rejection. You are being prepared for another thing. This is what the dark night of the soul is. You are being weaned from simpler pleasures to be able to grow as a mature adult for good quality food and good quality duty. This then is our study on the dark night of the soul. I understand time-wise the answer to Shireen about Khawf or Raja and Taqwa. Exactly. The word Taqwa is God consciousness, and Khawf or Raja are its practical forms in the form of two images, two emotions. So exactly, all I mean, Taqwa is the encompassing word with Khawf or Raja as two qualities that show it. It's embodied, right? My time, yes. Thank you very much, people, for your attention. Inshallah, we continue uh, tomorrow exactly at this time. Yes, thank you, and we say farewell.
Abbas Saab, Islamic
Yes,
Abbas Saab,
ji ji ji.
can I just have one last quick question?
Sure, sure. Please.
I just wanted to if could you just recap those three names again
Ya
and the
qabizo, ya
meanings?
basito, ya vasio. Can I write them
Yes, please,
on the WhatsApp group?
please, if you could. Thank you.
I will. I will. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Assalamu alaikum,
Brilliant.
people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right, ji. Khuda Hafiz, everyone. Please pray. बड़ी रातें आ रही हैं अल्लाह ताला कबूल करे हमारी इबादतों को नमाजों को रोज़ों को दुआओं को and may Allah accept this little effort as part of his wisdom and part as a sharing. Thank you very much, people. All the best.